We're on a bit of a journey. We've been doing a study in 1 Corinthians 13, and it's all been about 40 days of love. 40 days of love, because our theory is that love is not all that we sometimes cut it out to be. Some people will look for definitions of love on TV, and they watch Bold and the Beautiful, and they think, that's not love, people. That's romance. But love has been something that we have been defining every week as we have looked at 1 Corinthians 13. I just need to say, Matt Langton, I don't know if you're here, he was here just now. Last week's sermon was amazing. And those of you who weren't here need to get that thing on the Google and watch that boy. That was a good sermon. And so, Matt, wherever you are, thanks for that great thing. I hope that you guys go out there and make the most of watching what Matt had to say. 1 Corinthians 13 is a great chapter. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I do just want to refresh your minds about the practical area in 1 Corinthians 13 from verse 4 to verse 7. And we spent the last 3 weeks looking at the practical nature of what love looks like. There's a philosophical view of love. There's a romantic view of love. But this is the practical view of what love is all about. Now, it's interesting because the characteristics of love are defined in 16 ways here. 8 of them are what love is, and 8 of them are what love is not in these few verses. So let me read them to you, and you can count them on your finger. Is that positive, negative, and so check me out. First of all, it says as verse 4, love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. Love is not proud. It is not rude. Love is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. And if you hadn't got the hint, love in verse 6 never fails. Great practical view of what love is all about. And today we're going to be looking at verse 5 again, and we're going to be looking at the aspect of love is not easily angered. What does it mean to be not easily angered? Well, there are other definitions in that definition in verse 4 to 7 that would help you to be able to counteract this thing of easily being angered. 2 weeks ago, we spoke about the aspect of what it means to tame the tongue. And it said, we looked at that passage where it says the tongue is the smallest of muscles, but it could determine so much about where you go. Because I'm convinced that there is a very strong link between taming the tongue and taming the temper. Because when the temper goes, the tongue flows, and that can often lead us to a problem. So there's a very strong link with what I said 2 weeks ago to what I'm going to talk about today. Incredibly, incredibly practical. This taming of your tongue. Now, anger is the issue that is evidenced as a result of us not taming our tongue. Not taming our tongue can lead to gossip. I don't want to touch too much on that again, because people need to tame our tongues. We talk far too much about other people in a negative light, and we need to tame our tongues in that realm. We need to tame our tongues in the realm of sarcasm and negative speech. We need to tame our tongues in those things. But the root of all these things, you see, all those things are like fruit. But the root of those things is found in this thing called anger. When I'm angry, I say the stupidest things. And at the end of my anger, I have to declare, man, I'm so embarrassed because I said that in a heat of anger, and now I can't take it back. It's like toothpaste. Once it's out, I can't put it back in. And I'm embarrassed that I spend my life apologizing for the things that I say when I'm angry. I don't usually mean them. But in anger, we do and say some of the stupidest things. So it's this anger that I'd like to consider today to be the root of the cause, the problem. Now, anger is an interesting emotion. It's probably the most misunderstood emotion. It's the most easily excused emotion. I've always got an excuse for my anger. It's the most easily rationalized emotion. I can rationalize anger and say it was somebody else's fault. They just pressed the wrong buttons, and I can rationalize it. I can justify it. I can justify my anger by something that has happened. So I can euphemize it, rationalize it, excuse it until I'm blue in the face. But it's my deal. Now, let me say at the outset, I wish we could do a whole sermon on this. Anger is not always sin. You do know that. I know that because God gets angry, and God cannot sin. But from time to time, we see God getting really angry with stuff that's going on around the place. God got really angry that the children of Israel had to suffer all those years in slavery. God gets really angry when he sees certain things happening around. God has a righteous form of anger that is perfect because he is perfect. You know, the care center that we've just witnessed on there is a product of righteous anger. That's what it is. We weren't feeling sad or mad or glad anymore about the issues of HIV as they faced us. We'd passed that. We were not feeling glad anymore that, I don't have the disease and I live in we weren't feeling glad anymore. We weren't feeling sad anymore because sadness was a lousy motivator to keep you going. We still have affected emotionally. We know that. We were not feeling any bad anymore because I can lay guilt on people to say, look how badly those people are living and look how well you live. And I can lay guilt on you. But we've passed that. We're now mad. We've got a righteous anger against the things that are so unjust in our community. And it's this anger, this righteous anger, this holy discontent that keeps us in the game. You only feel sad for so long. You'll only feel bad for so long. You'll only hopefully feel glad for a little while. But you will feel mad every time. It sustains the stuff that we do. Now, God is so much like that. When God sees the stuff that makes him mad, that's a righteous anger. We will save that sermon for another day. But the truth is that we live in a world that is a world of rage. A lot of rage out there in the world today. Just have a look around the world and you just see wars that are being fought because people are so angry with one another. We have road rage. How crazy is it that a guy being cut off by somebody else at a traffic light or something, I don't know, gets out and he shoots the guy. And you say, that doesn't happen. Read the newspapers. It's full of it. Road rage because somebody else. And I get that sometimes. You know, and I have to think, wow, where did that come from? It comes because I got a messed up heart. But, we have domestic rage where husbands rage against wives and wives and rage against husbands, and then families and children are raging against parents. And there's a lot of rage out there today. We live in a world full of rage. So I want to get straight into this thing today. And I have a whole bunch of points. I hope I'm able to get through as many as I've got. But we'll have to maybe pick and choose a few of these things. The first approach that we have to have towards this thing called anger, and this is stuff that I'm appealing to your head to think about. The first thing that we have to do is we have to resolve to manage it. It's not going to go away. We have to, number one, make a choice. Because anger is a choice. You do know that. It's a choice to get angry. We have to resolve to manage this thing called anger. You know why? Because anger is my responsibility. I have to stop excusing it. I have to own my anger. And that's why the Bible in Galatians talk about the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, meekness, and what's the last one? Self-control. It's a fruit of the Spirit. It's something you have to do. You have to own your anger. Stop blaming others for it. As understandable as that sometimes can be, we have to own this thing called anger. We have to stop excusing it. We have to stop blaming others. We have to stop saying, I can't control my anger. For goodness sake, people. How pathetic is that? I can't control. Of course you can control your anger. Anything that is a choice is something that you can control. And that's what anger is. I know this because I could be sitting and having a domestic discussion with Helene. We don't have those. No, we never have those. I'm just saying, you guys do that, so we never do that. But we could be sitting at a coffee shop having a domestic discussion, and all of a sudden we're in the heat of this thing, and one of you arrive at the table and say, hey, Trev, how's it going? And straight away, hey, how you doing? You know, what are you up to? You know, should we go fishing, or you want to come and have coffee? And I can turn it on and turn it off, and the minute you've gone, I'm back in again. Because anger is is simply a choice. Proverbs 29 has verses and advice for people like me. It says this, a fool calls me a fool. It says this, A fool gives vent to his anger, but a wise man keeps himself under control. That's the whole link to self-control. God does not control you. He's not sitting with some little remote control thing there, go left, go right, say this, say that. No, he doesn't. It is self-control. It is a choice. And so we need to resolve to manage it. And the best way to resolve to manage it is not to wait for it to happen, but it's to resolve it in light of the fact that you know you're going to be angry in the future. Create for yourself in your mind some way of thinking, if this happens to me, then this is how I am going to manage it. Because you don't fix it, you manage it. And so when we think to ourselves, well, if this situation happens, if that situation, I have a plan. The problem is we're all like jukeboxes. You know, when you put your money in the jukebox and you push a particular button, it plays the same tune over and over and over again. And so we get angry. The same thing happens. We press the same button with the same response. And then we wonder why things are going wrong, because we're pressing the wrong button. We need to choose a different tune. We need to choose a different tactic to manage this thing called anger, because obviously what we're doing, and I'm speaking for myself, obviously it doesn't work. So why do I keep pressing the same button and expecting a different result every time? That is really, really foolish. And so we need to resolve in advance about how to handle this bad habit, because that's what it is, of anger. Another version of that particular verse was in that Proverbs 29:11 says this: a stupid man. He substitute fool for stupid. I'm not sure which one I like the most. I don't like either. A stupid man gives free rein, but a wise man waits and cools down. Here's one of the first things you've got to do in your plan to manage anger. That word wait is a good thing. You know, tendency for us as human beings is we react to situations instead of responding to situations. Now, the difference between a reaction and a response is anywhere from a split second right through to count to 10, right through to take a deep breath, right through to take a walk, right through to 24 hours later coming back and say, do you mind if I have had some time to think about this? Can we talk about it now? There is a waiting period that needs to happen after you have been hit with this thing that would immediately cause you to react in anger. You say, is it that simple? I really think it is. That from the moment that we get that thing, the program, press a button, the jukebox plays a tune, we react. We don't respond, but the difference between the reaction and the response is just a short period of time. Don't wait too long, because we've told in Ephesians, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. So don't put this off forever. You have to be able to say, within the next day at least, I will have resolved this particular issue that has caused me to get so angry. So this waiting is an incredibly important time. Now, during this waiting, or during this delay period between possibility of a reaction and a response, the questions that you have to ask have to change. Listen carefully. When something happens that causes anger, my first question is, what happened? What happened? You know, you said this, you did this, you made me angry by what you did. A better question is, why am I angry? Why am I angry about this thing? It's not what I'm angry about, it's why I'm angry. See, the problem is not the problem is the root of the problem. There is a root to anger, and if you can deal with the root, then we'll take care of the fruit. And the root of the problem very often is my ego. The reason I'm angry is not what's happened, it's who I am. It's because I'm proud, it's because I'm full of ego, and because you've affected my self-esteem, and because I'm angry with you because you've made me feel less, and you feel kind of out of control of the whole thing. The best form of defense is attack. Have you heard of that? That's a military thing. And we do that. We think the reaction is, let me just attack straight back, instead of waiting and thinking, why am I so? Now, there are 3 reasons as to why you might be angry. Okay? 3 reasons. The first reason is because what has happened has hurt you. Hurt, number 1. Has hurt you. Sherry downstairs is using an illustration today with the kids using an apple. And you know the saying that hurts people hurts people? The reason that we cause anger and we feed anger is when we get hurt, and hurt people hurt people. And she's using an illustration, so I stole it from her. This is an apple. And this morning at 7 o'clock, this apple was in good nick, but I hurt the apple. I did this a few times around the apple. And look at my apple now. That's 2 hours of hurt, bruised. If you bite into that boy, you wouldn't want to eat anymore because he is bruised. Now, and by the time lunchtime comes, you will see horrible evidence of what this apple is going to look like. So when we feed on hurt, and when we hold it within us, hurt people hurt people. So we're going to know, well, I've got to acknowledge not my anger, but I've got to acknowledge the reason or the motive behind my anger is because I'm actually hurt, and that's okay. That's okay. The second reason that we get upset and in order to resolve our anger is we have to look at the issues not just of our hurt, but we have to look at the issue of frustration. Man, I get so frustrated when you guys don't do what I tell you to do. I get so frustrated when things happen in my life that are just, freak me out because I'm out of control. The reason I'm frustrated is because I don't have control over this thing. The reason that I'm upset is not just my anger, because that's the fruit. It's the fruit of an emotion of frustration. And when things don't go my way and when things get out of control, I evidence that with the fruit of anger. But the root of it is simply frustration. We get out of control. Now we see this in homes, do we not? Frustrated wives, frustrated husbands, because their spouse doesn't always do what they want them to do. We look at frustration in the home, and we see how it's all related to expectations. You fail my expectations, you frustrate me, because I have expectations that you don't realize. And when you don't realize my expectation, I just get very frustrated with you. But here's an interesting thing, that I see so many marriages and so many things going wrong because our expectation of our husband or our wife is an expectation that only God can fulfill. Think about that. The things that you're expecting a human being to satisfy you with are things that only God can give you. And when this guy when this guy fails and fails again, and you get frustrated, you got to look at yourself and say, maybe my expectation of him is unrealistic. Maybe I'm expecting this man to give me something that only God can give me. So give him a break. Give the dude a break, because your expectation is totally unrealistic. I have 2 words of marriage counseling for you today, and this is a whole seminar in 2 words. Just grow up. Grow up. Who says it's all about you anyway? And when you don't meet my expectations, and I'm immature, because that's the root of immaturity is selfishness. And when I'm selfish and it's all about me, I will take it out on you because you're not meeting my expectation. We need at some stage to say, just grow up. That's why 1 Corinthians 13 there says this. When I was a child, I thought as a child. I spoke as a child. I lived like a child. But then when I grew up, it says the same passage, I put away childish things. And I look at God as if through a glass darkly, he says. Because it's not that clear as to what God is like. Until we get to heaven one day, we will always look at God through a glass darkly. Donnie is seeing God face to face right now. For us down here, we look through a glass darkly. And we have these expectations of human beings that only God can give to us. And, we need to kind of grow up. We often see, it's good that Johannes here today. Johannes, remarkable Lord, he has to oversee, and it must break his heart seeing so many marriages that are falling apart and ending up in divorce. And I'm told, I don't know if Johanna would agree with this, that one of the most common reasons for divorce today is what they call incompatibility. We are incompatible. No, you're not incompatible. You're just simply, immature. That's what it is. Compatibility is not a problem for mature people. And when we declare incompatibility, what we're really declaring is I'm selfish and I want my own thing and I'm expecting you to give me so only God can give me. And we become frustrated with one another because our expectation has not been met. What about the third reason here? is the reason I'm angry is because I'm full of fear. When you get me in the corner and I've got to defend myself, I'm fearful you're going to knock me out. And so I will defend myself with words that you won't like. I will defend myself. You know, the eye for an eye, the tooth for a tooth thing. I will defend myself because I am fearful. Now, fear is a very prevailing emotion in today's world. We are fearful people. We're fearful of the future. We're fearful of public opinion. We're fearful. One of the biggest fears we have is the fear of being found out. That's a great fear. We have this fear of failure. We're a fearful people. Just have a look at 2 Samuel, an example of King Saul. King Saul should have been a great king. He had all the right attributes for a king, but he messed up because he became fearful. He became frustrated, and he became oversensitive and became completely hurt. And, you know, in his relationship with David, he crumbled because he was fearful of the future. He thought, David has got more popular than me. When they wrote a song about us, they said, Saul has killed his thousands, and David has killed his 10,000. Man, I'm so afraid. I'm so insecure. I'm so fearful of the future that they like him more than me. And his fear is evidenced in anger. One day he picks up a spear and he tries to kill David. He spent months and probably years chasing David through the wilderness from one cave to another, trying to kill the guy because he was threatened by him. He was hurt. He was frustrated. And he was fearful. And the evidence to put all those three together, what have you got? You've got an outburst or a life filled with anger. Second thing, first of all, we have to resolve to manage it. The second thing is, let's do this one. We've got to remember the cost. In your contemplations about anger, just remember what it's going to cost you to be angry. Just think of the thing in Proverbs 29, verse 22. It says this, a hot-tempered man gets into all kinds of trouble. Have a look at what does all kinds mean. You know, a hot-tempered man gets into all kinds of trouble. That's a broad sense. What are these all kinds thing? And it includes things like a bad-tempered man. It includes things like mistakes. He's going to make a lot of mistakes when he reacts out of anger. He's going to say a lot of things he didn't mean when he overreacts. He's going to say foolish things. He's going to, have you seen some men? You know, they punch the door, or they punch, even worse, the wall. And I know this because I saw a guy the other day. I said, what happened to your hand? And embarrassingly, he said, I punched the wall. And you broke your hand? Yeah, why? Well, I got kind of angry. I'm thinking, now you've got to pay for that. That was a stupid thing to do. You're not going to hurt the wall. The wall's much tougher than you. Now he's broken his hand. I'm thinking, why would you do that? You know, because anger makes us do the stupidest thing. There's so much to lose when you get angry. Let me give you a list of some of the things that you stand to lose when you respond in an angry way. You stand to lose your reputation. You know, your reputation takes 100 years to earn, and you could lose it in one incident of anger. You can lose your reputation. You certainly can lose your respect. People, I don't know anybody who respects somebody who evidences anger. You could lose your job by getting angry. You could lose that great sale that you want to do in that job. You know, a contract coming up and these things and you get angry and the sale is gone. You could lose the love of your family. You don't want to do that. Anger will alienate you from your family. You don't want to do that. Here's probably one of the worst. You could lose your health. Because anger unaddressed turns to bitterness in your heart, just like that apple. Just like that apple. And inside you die a little bit, and it is a miserable, miserable death. So there's three responses to your anger, or to your anger from other people. When you get angry, other people have got three ways to respond to you. The first way is that other people can respond with, number one, additional anger. Additional anger. When you get angry with them, they just get angry back at you. And then you get angry back at them. And before you know it, what's something that was so small has become like a mountain, and it's become so uncontrollable. You don't know what to do with it anymore. And it's just one thing after another. This is that eye for an eye, a tooth for a thing. You hurt me, I hurt you. You know, I heard of of one person who was hurt by her husband. He had an affair, so she went off and had an affair. And you think, come on, man. You know, they're going to hell. All it did was add to the already hugely existing pain. Hurt people hurt people. The second one is apathy. Apathy. People will respond to you with apathy, and they will take no notice of you. They will ignore you every time you show anger. And they'll say, oh, there he goes again. There he goes again. There she goes again. She's angry again. And we just withdraw from you, and we just kind of ignore you. It's kind of like when the children of Israel were given the 10 Commandments, and God had established some rules and some regulations, and they just tried so hard, but they couldn't cut it. They couldn't live out the 10 Commandments. They couldn't live out the laws of the land. They couldn't live it out. And so they had this perception that God was angry with them because they couldn't live out the law of the land. And so they said, well, we're never going to be able to match his standards. Let's just withdraw from him and so that he doesn't get angry with us. They didn't understand God. And many people today are so afraid of God. They think God's out there to beat us up and to be angry. God's not an accountant waiting to tick off and make it. Oh, look what he did today. Angel, write that down. You know, oh, look what she said. Oh, my word. Angel, did you get a recording of that thing? And we think that God is like this. I'm not like that, people. God loves us. But if we continue this thing of alienating ourselves, this apathy, because I can't please God, I keep a distance. And then the last one is alienation. Alienation. But I just don't want to hang out with you anymore. Keep my distance from you. It's like Jacob and Esau. When Esau got angry with Jacob because he stole his birthright, what happened to the two? They became estranged from one another. I was looking for another A. And Gary Brackley thought that you spelled estranged, A-S-T. It's actually an E, Gary. It's an E, so I couldn't use it. I was looking for an A. But so we get alienated from one another. Jacob and Esau became alienated for years. And that's what anger can do to us. Remember the cost, people. There's a high price to pay, and there's an awful lot at stake. Okay, let's turn this into something positive. We've seen the negative. Let's talk about what it means now to release my anger. Number 3. Release my anger. Let me tell you how you do this. You've got to find a way. Here's 3 rules for finding a way to release your anger. Simple, do this. When you're confronted with an issue of anger, you have to address the anger. You can't sweep it under the carpet. But you have to do it in one of 3 ways. The first thing, you have to find a way to release your anger in such a way that it doesn't offend God. So you can't curse him, you can't swear, you can't offend him when you're tempted toward anger. The second thing, you have to find a way that you can express your anger without it hurting other people. So you're not allowed to eye for an eye, tooth for a guy and think that that's going to work. That's not going to work at all. So far we say you've got to find a way that doesn't offend God, a way that doesn't hurt people. And thirdly, you've got to find a way to address your anger in a way that it doesn't hurt you. So you don't hold this thing in. You'll do what I tell you in a minute, because I'm going to tell you what to do as we learn how to release this thing. But you're going to get ulcers. You can hurt yourself. Some people are even driven to suicide because somebody else has done something wrong to them. They didn't do anything wrong. Somebody else did it, and they're driven now to hurt themselves. People who cut themselves. The fact is, they're angry people. They're angry generally with their fathers. They're angry with stuff, and so they hurt themselves. And I remember talking to a beautiful young lady one day who was a cutter, and I said, why do you do it? And she simply said this, Uncle Trevor, when I cut myself here, it distracts me, my physical pain, distracts me from the pain that I'm feeling in my heart. I'll just hurt myself. How tragic is that? Until we will go to such lengths. Let me challenge something quickly in the area of what you've been told. Pop psychology suggests one of the ways to handle your anger is to kind of dump it on somebody. I'll go talk to my friend. I'll go talk to my husband, my wife, and I will just dump my anger, boom. and I will emotionally vomit all over the place. And I think I'm doing the right thing. And Oprah will tell you that that's one thing that you can do. It's a clever idea, but I have to tell you, it doesn't work. You know why? It's because we've got this picture that anger is like a bucket. That in my heart I have a bucket that holds anger. And when it gets to a certain level, then all I need to do is go and see my friend. Oh, boom. And I dump the stuff on my buddy. The anger in your heart is not in a bucket. Your heart is a factory producing anger. It's not in a bucket where you just dump it. That's not helpful, because it's not going to be long before the bucket is full again. And you got to go back and keep dumping this stuff. The anger in your heart is not like a bucket. It's like a factory that produces anger continually. So you're going to say, well, what do I do with this? Here's some of the best way that you can do it. There are some people who become mute. And they think, when I get angry, I will just do something like I will suppress the anger. I will suppress it. Some people, instead of muting it or suppressing it, may become like the martyr. Oh, woe is me. I am the victim, and I will repress my anger. And there are some people who become maniacs. And they express their anger. You've got a choice of those three. You can mute it, you can suppress it, kind of like a Coke. Shake a Coke bottle, and when you take the boom, that's, if you suppress it for too long, it's bound to explode at some stage. Some people will repress it. They will just deny it. They will pretend that it's not there. They'll play the passive-aggressive role. They will sulk in the presence of, they will turn to sarcasm. They will take cheap shots at that person. And then in action, they'll say, I don't get even, I don't get mad. The bumper sticker says, I don't get mad, I get even. There's people that live out that philosophy, and revenge, I have to tell you, is very overrated. So we say, well, if those are the three things I shouldn't do, let me give you one thing you should do. You should, in the words of Gary Neethling, cast it. Cast your burdens onto Jesus, 'cause He cares for you. Cast your burdens onto Jesus. This is the best thing that you can do. When you go to God and you cast all your hurts, your frustrations, and your fears onto Him. That conversation with God, not with people where you vomit all over them and you do all those things. Go to God first. If you have to go to other people and afterwards, that's fine. Some of us need to get counsel, some need to get advice and some guidance. But all that advice and the guidance is one thing. But when you go to God, I want to read you an example of this in the life of David very quickly. David was confronted with his fears, frustrations, and all the hurts of mankind. And so he does what I've just said. He didn't repress it. He didn't depress it. He didn't express it. He went to God with his issue here. Psalm 64. It's a short psalm. But listen here to the three things that David did in order to deal with his anger. He says, hear me, O God. He's not saying, hear me, O my friend, while I dump all over you my issues. He says, hear me, O God, as I voice my complaints. Don't go to people. He goes to God. And he says this, protect my life from the threat of the enemy. Hide me from the conspiracy of the wicked, from the noisy crowd of evildoers. This is his fear factor. This is the fear coming through, and he's acknowledging not his anger, he's acknowledging his fear to God. Then in verse 3 he says, they sharpen their like swords. They aim their words like deadly arrows. They shoot from ambush at the innocent man. They shoot at him suddenly without fear. And this is the words of his frustration. I can do nothing with these people. I can't control them. I can do nothing about them. And these are shooting these arrows of horrible statements at me. God, I'm so frustrated. And so he takes his fear and he takes his frustration not to his best buddy or to somebody else. He takes them to God. And then he says, verse 5 and 6, they encourage each other in evil places. They talk about hiding their snares. They say, who will see them? They plot injustice against me and say, we have devised a perfect plan. Surely the mind and the heart of man are cunning. And here's the hurt. Why would they want to do that to me? I've been kind. I haven't been a miserable oak. And yet they want to hurt me. But he doesn't take it to people. He takes it to God. And here's the end result. Look at the last verse. Lord, let the righteous rejoice in you and take refuge in you. Let all the upright in heart praise you. Hey, I don't want to sound simplistic, but I do want to make this simple. People, when you're faced with issues that would make you angry, when you hurt, name that hurt. Don't cover it with anger. Talk about why you're angry, not what's made you angry. Take that to God and say, Lord, I'm hurt. God, I'm really frustrated. Things are out of control around me. God, I'm so fearful, I'm insecure, and I don't quite know how to handle these things. And when you do that with God, I don't understand it. And I really wish I could explain it. But watch what happens to your anger. You know, it's a beautiful thought, and with this I'll close. That we often cry out to God, Lord, help me with these issues. Help me with my anger. Help me with my frustratedness. And I've always said to you that help me is very often an illegitimate prayer. And people want to argue with me because they read it in the scriptures. Well, the reason that I say help me prayers are illegitimate is because God has already helped you. He can't do anything more. You can pray, Lord, help me to stand strong against my times of fear. And God says, I can't help you. I've done everything for you. I have given you the Holy Spirit who dwells inside of me. I can do no more for you. I have helped you already. And when you acknowledge the presence of God in you and you share with God the things that have hurt, frustrated, and destroying, and the things that you're fearful of, when you share those things with God, people, watch what happens to your own heart. David says this. He says, Psalm 51, he says, create in me a clean heart. I'm going to get rid of this stuff somewhere. My fears and my insecurities, my discipline. I'm going to do, and that's not just sin you clear your heart of. You've got to clean your heart of that stuff as well. He says, cleanse my heart, O Lord, and see if there be any wicked way in Psalm 139. And you've got to talk to God about those things. So at the end of the day, this is what we have to do. We have to take these things that make us fearful, these things that make us frustrated, and these things that make us hurt. Before you take them to another human being, won't you take them to God? You say, is it that simple? Apparently it is. Apparently it is. We're about to take communion right now. And as I was thinking about this early this morning, I thought there was a time in Genesis 3 when God got angry. He got angry with sin. And he said in the Garden of Eden, he said to the serpent, he said, there will one day come a day where a man will come and he will crush your head. And you'll bruise his heel, but he's going to crush your head. That's an action of anger. And God got angry with sin. He's not angry with you, people. We think that God is angry with me. He's not angry with you. He's angry with sin because he hates what sin does to you. And when Jesus died on the cross, he didn't die there because he was angry with you. He died there because he loved you, but he was angry with sin. And as we come to the communion table, won't you reflect on that just for a moment? That thought alone with the other one that we've just said could change your life. When you realize God's not angry with you, he loves you, but he's terribly frustrated that sin does what it does. He's terribly frustrated that sin hurts you, that sin makes you fearful. All three categories, God acknowledges and says, stand back. I'll handle this. I'll handle this on your behalf. And he crushes Satan's head. That's what communion is all about. So I'm going to invite those who are going to be taking up and giving out the communion today, if they would come forward right now, and I'm just going to pray. Father, we are so aware of our need of you, especially at a time like this when we're confronted by issues that we think are outside of our control. And Lord, many of them are, and we acknowledge that there's some things we cannot control. But the only thing that we can control is ourselves. And Lord, when we're faced with issues of anger and we're tempted to be grumpy with people and let our anger be expressed or repressed or suppressed, Lord, I pray that we would do neither of those three, but that we would learn what it means to talk to you and release our anger to you. Your scriptures are so full of so many great examples of this. And in a practical way today, God, this is a practical sermon. I pray we would learn what this means. Thank you that you have already helped us. And when we cry, Lord, help me, you're saying, help yourself, because I've already given you every ounce of power that you need to be able to do the things that we've spoken about today. You can do it. You're a lot stronger than you think you are, because we have the Holy Spirit within us who's saying, I will help you. If you will just take that first step and release this to God, I will help you as you take that step. You're not going to do it in advance or from behind. God, I pray that we would realize today how strong we actually are to be able to deal with the issues of anger that confront us day by day. Help us as we take our communion today, and we're so reminded of the fact that you were angry once. You were angry with sin. And when Jesus came, he was the one who crushed Satan's head and said, sin, I'm done with you. I pray that we would celebrate this in our communion thinking today. In Jesus' name, amen.